just to see whether we can not start until all the technical side is in hand. You're good to go?
Yep, ready.
Okay, thank you. Councillor, open the meeting and just note that Councillor Berry is an apology for tonight's meeting. She's still not well. Also to advise that this meeting is recorded for accuracy going forward. Item 4, confirmation of minutes. Would somebody please move that the minutes of Councillor Tatchell, Councillor Edwards? I'll put that all those in favour. It's carried. Thank you. Are there any matters arising out of the previous minutes? Okay, no. Disclosure of conflicts of interest, if any, councillors, on the matters tonight agenda. Are there any? Okay, thank you. First item is 7.1, and we have two speakers, Mr. Mark Mullane and Mr. James Robson. Mr. Mullane, are you online, please? Mark, please. Mr. Mullane, do you wish to speak first? And then James, obviously, you're in the same building, so we'll speak second. So I'll hand it over to you, Mr. Mullane, please. Can you hear us? I think you might be on mute.
Yeah, there's mute down the bottom there.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yes, it's over to you, Mark, please.
Yeah, thanks, councillors. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak. First of all, I'd just like to let people know that the property in interest tonight has been in our family for over 70 years. And, I understand why the council would like to keep farming zone and not lose farming land, but unfortunately in our area, it's very hard to make an income off farming land in our area. Like, we're not fortunate enough to have unlimited topsoil, unlimited water, like a lot of my friends over in Dunstown and Bungaree. We're only approximately 4 kilometres from the Eureka Stockade, where my parcel of land is. In that, what we call the triangle, it runs from Warren Heath to Navigator's Yendon Road, and then Yankee Flat Road to Mount Bunnyhill. There's hundreds and hundreds of parcels of land in that area, and from my knowledge, I've spent basically all my life in this area. There's only one person in that area that makes an actual income off the land, and that's why it's very hard. I've been running cattle and a few crops and sheep for the last 28 to 30 years, and we've run at a loss every year. And so we're looking at trying to diversify my parcel of land to try and work out how we can stay on this land, because we obviously love the community and we're very community minded, and because I've spent nearly all my life there, I would certainly like to stay on this land. But at the moment, with the way it is, it's actually costing us money to do so. So that's when we looked at lots of things. We looked at free-range chickens, we looked at olive trees, and we come up with the horses because I grew up with horses with my dad, and I know a lot about the horses, and doing a lot of homework, I have worked out that I can make an income, or at least make a profit from that. But obviously, to do what I would want to do, I would need someone to live on site, as horses and in the breeding and foaling down and so forth. We need like 24/7 care. And recently, my health has become bad, so I've had to leave my full-time job. So that's where I'm at the minute. And I just wanted to also touch base that as of yesterday, I think you might be aware, yesterday I found out that the planner that was looking at my parcel of land, it was actually on the documents as it was 64 hectares, and it was a parcel of 8 titles. I just wanted to make sure that people are aware that I only have 3 titles, and my parcel of land is approximately 22 hectares. So basically, that's where I'm at the minute.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Malone. Any questions of Mr. Malone, councillors? Okay, thank you. Mr. Robson, please.
So thank you, Mayor and councillors. So obviously our client has currently 3 parcels of land. One of the, so totaling about 23.9 hectares all up. One of the 3 titles is a small parcel containing an existing dwelling, with the remaining 2 titles currently vacant. The 3 titles associated with this application are in common ownership to the applicant, and despite indication to the contrary within the officer's report, the proponent does not own, operate or manage any other land parcels within the vicinity. So the smallest lot contains a dwelling with the boundaries proposed to be slightly altered, allowing for this already excised dwelling to be held on a slightly larger parcel of land, still contained within the 2 hectare maximum in accordance with clause 2203. The remaining 2 land parcels are proposed to be consolidated into a larger single lot, which will be approximately 21.9 hectares and will be used for agricultural purposes as outlined within the Lodged Farm Management Plan. It's further proposed that the permit be granted for the use and development of a dwelling on the proposed lot 2 to operate in conjunction with the proposed equine industry and enterprise as per Mark's discussion just now. It is submitted that a dwelling is needed at the site to appropriately manage the enterprise as the proponent has already outlined. The nature of the equine use and the relevant code of practice requires the supervision and security that a residence of the land would offer. It is submitted that the proposed dwelling will actively support the agricultural use proposed for the site with increased intensity of agricultural pursuit as a result in accordance with the relevant farm zone requirements. Clause 2203 of the Moorabool Planning Scheme provides policy that, amongst other things, discourages non-agricultural use in areas of productive agricultural land, encourages the consolidation of small lots, and ensures that lots created under clause 35073 have a maximum area of 2 hectares. The proposal meets these policy requirements as lodged, and we therefore request that councillors consider the proposal favourably.
Thank you, Mr. Robson. Councillors, any question of Mr. Robson? Mr. Bezudenhout, there was reference to by both speakers to the matters in the report. Do you wish to sort of clarify that, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yep, that was brought to our attention by Mr. Dobson, and that's correct. That is oversight in the officer's report. We can either, the one option would be to defer the report and we correct the report, or if decided tonight, we can just acknowledge that oversight as part of the decision.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bezudenhout. Councillors, I'm in your hand. There was an alternate motion that had been. Councillor Tatchell, please.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, I think we all acknowledge that there was an oversight, and we've all read the report with that taken into account. So it would be certainly fruitless to redo it should the alternative motion get up. So we acknowledge that Mr. Malone only has 3 parcels of land and the other 8 belong to people of the same name. So I don't think that's going to be an issue at any point in redoing work for that reason. But councillors, I've circulated an alternate motion on this particular item. I hope everyone's had a read to understand what the conditions are, and I'm open to any questions should there be. So I'd propose that motion be put forward and look for a seconder, please.
Just with respect to the motion, the alternate motion that you've actually circulated, Councillor Tatchell, do you need to put any reference to the matters in the report that need to be amended?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I do indeed. We need to acknowledge as part of that report that all parts of the report, including maps that make reference to the 8 lots or 8 titles, are incorrect. and do not form part of the recommendation or decision made within this application. That would just tidy, that would be the housekeeping in to tidy this up, Mr.
So
Mayor.
that would be incorporated into your circulated motion,
Yeah.
which councillors have seen. I take it everyone's seen it. Okay, so it's been moved by Councillor Tatchell. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Ward, is there any dissent? Councillor Edwards, Councillor Tatchell, do you wish to speak to the motion? Speak to the motion, please.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I had hoped that the alternate was self-explanatory, but the reality is that, as Mr. Malone has explained, that the issues in that area now, that and being so close to, I think it's 6 kilometres from Eureka Street, 4 kilometres from the southern, where the Eureka Stockade is. I mean, it's basically, it backs on fairly close to the universities there. It's surrounded by 5 other lots that are now housing, and it's been clearly established that farming is not an option there any longer in terms of making profit, but it is indeed heading towards what we would consider to be good rural living, where you get the best of both worlds. I would also argue that that horses are agricultural in terms of even if we don't see many. We don't see many thoroughbreds wandering around Melbourne in the city. Most of them are in the country, and they do eat a bit of hay, and they do eat dates, and they do support an economy of people that provide those particular items. And indeed, they supply work for farriers, horse feeders, and anyone that's ever owned anything that's got 4 legs and a tail. You usually keep the vetted Porsches. So I would suggest that this is the changing face of Moorabool, where we're seeing the condensed living in Bacchus Marsh, and I think this is part of balancing out the Shire to make sure that we can introduce families to these communities, to support the community navigators, to make sure that we've got more children, more families that can help with those traditional jobs of those country people as navigators, with their halls, their tennis courts, and that general community lifestyle. And that's what it is today. So that's all I have to say on the matter.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Tatchell. Councillor Edwards, you
Thank you, Mr.
know to
Mayor.
speak against the motion, please.
Yes, I would. In relation to the usage of horses, I have no problems with that. However, we talked about, there's been issues raised here tonight about the inability to farm because you can't make a profit. And part of the reason you can't make a profit on land is so expensive to buy land these days. There are processes, if we want to make this rural residential land, there are processes by which we can follow that are appropriate that will enable that to occur. But what that requires is a lot of strategic work to be done that justifies it, then it doesn't affect all the farming land around. But if we continue to allow additional dwellings to be put in and turn it into a pseudo rural residential, then that means that all farming land prices go through the roof. That means that rates get increased to at a greater rate. That means that the farmers who want to remain on the land, who want to farm, won't be able to because all the value of the land becomes too great. It's a challenge that the peri-urban region faces. I sympathise with the applicants in a large degree, but it's going to become more and more difficult in the future. So we as a council need to make a decision. Do we allow farming values to go up and do we turn it all into rural residential? I'm sure there's many people in Melbourne. And do we follow the recommendation here that tells us that this will make it unviable for farming?
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Are there any other councillors speaking for or against the motion or the alternate motion? Okay. If not, Councillor Tatchell, do you wish to close the debate, please?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Isn't it interesting we're talking about horses tonight? Well, the stable door was left open a long time ago, and the reality is the horse is well and truly bolted through navigators. And that whilst I sympathise with where Mr. Councillor Edwards is coming from, the reality is that's already happened, and we've got to stick with the times. And it is fair to say that we have asked for a rural living report. We are in unprecedented growth, as Councillor Edwards would be well aware. And hence, that's why we asked for that particular strategy and report to be produced. So to suggest that there isn't one or isn't one in motion is probably just slightly misleading. But in terms of where we sit with this today, as I said, the stable door was left open a very long time ago, and if you want to catch that horse, I think you're sitting at the wrong table because it's well and truly bolted.
Thank you, Councillor Tatchell. Councillor, we've heard all the debate. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? It is carried. It's carried. Thank you. Thank you, councillors.
Can I call on division?
Certainly. All those in favour?
Sorry.
Go now.
Councillor
Let's read names out now.
Councillor Edward, call for division. So I'll probably just do it by show of hands. All those in favour, could they please raise their hands? The division's been called. Councillor Murray. All those against? Councillor Edwards and Councillor Dudzik. Thank you. Next item of business is item 7.2, and we have some speakers to this item. And the first speaker is Mr. Richard Blake. Mr. Blake, are you online there, please? Can you hear us? Mr. Blake? Mr. Richard Blake? Sorry?
It's not there yet.
Not there yet. Well, is Mr. Martin Blake, the applicant, available, please? So we might just alter the order if they don't. Or Ms. Carol Guthrie. Is Carol available, please? Ms. Guthrie?
Just letting them in. Something.
Oh, okay. Oh, thank you. Okay, thanks.
Blake, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Richard Blake. Yes, we can hear you, Richard. Please, yes. And you're the applicant's representative in this matter at the property in 23 Martin Street, Blackwood?
Correct.
Yes. So you have the floor.
I have the floor.
Indeed.
I'm just trying to get rid of a little icon here. Co-host has asked you to start your video. Start my video.
Okay, we can certainly hear you anyway. If you do have any technical problems with video, we can certainly hear you.
Yeah, okay. I can see you and I can hear you too. So,
Okay, if you wish to proceed, that'd be great. Thank you.
thank you for the opportunity to speak at this meeting. This is pertaining to Blackwood Post Office Council submission TP 215131-1. Our initial request is to get a deferral of the decision on this item 7.2.
Okay, so you're seeking a deferral to this item, Mr. Blake?
We are.
Okay. Any questions of councillors of Mr. Blake? Okay, thank you, Mr. Blake. We do have two other speakers, Mr. Martin Blake. Is Martin available, please? Mr. Martin Blake, wish to speak?
Is that it for me? Because
Yes, yeah, that's fine. No, well, unless you have anything else to add.
well, I've got plenty to add, but I don't know where this is going. So I've got other things to say if that's the case.
Okay,
I think we have, is that Martin Blake on the line or is that Rick?
No, it's still Rick.
okay.
Can I just continue with my time, please?
Well, if you wish, I thought you'd sort of just, the point where you asked for a deferral, I thought that's where it's at, but please continue if there are other matters you wish to speak to, please.
Yeah. So the reason for our request for deferral is we've reviewed the report on when it was uploaded to the website.
Can you still hear us, Mr. Blake?
It's dropped out.
You seem to have dropped out. I don't know whether it's your end or our end. We might just see whether we can get Mr. Blake back online.
Good to see all that money we spent up at Blackwood on the internet's working well for us.
Indeed.
Their end.
It's at their end.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Why don't I move to defer it, Mr. Bear, and let you get catch, I don't come back on.
Well, in the absence, so seemingly that's what Mr. Blake was seeking.
Happy to second.
Councillor Tatchell has moved that we defer it. Seconded Councillor Dudzik. Are there any debate? I'll put that all those in favour. It is carried. Thank you. So when the two other people or Mr. Richard Blake come online, we'll just advise them that because they dropped out, we've decided to honour their wishes of deferral, and that's been adhered to. Next item of business, councillors, item 7.3, which relates to a property at 629 Mount Doran Road, Mount Doran, and we have two speakers, Mr. Dale Wright and Ms. Marnie Campbell. If they're online, please. They are supporting the recommendation. Mr. Wright and Ms. Campbell, if you wish to speak, please. We can't hear you. You must be on mute.
Yeah, the red button corner. Yeah.
Okay.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, how are you?
Thanks.
Well, thank you.
My name is Marnie Campbell, and I own a block bordering 629 Mount Doran Road within the same subdivision. I purchased my block considering the building envelope and also my neighbours' building envelopes and where they were situated, our outlooks of our blocks and all those kind of things. The 629 Mount Doran Road variation doesn't directly impact me. The block does border mine, but their house I won't be able to see. I placed my objection against the variation. As if approved, it could set a precedent for all the other neighbours and blocks that haven't built houses yet. I have 6 neighbours next to my block that border it, and only one of those has built a house so far. There's still 5 that are yet to build across it all. So that's my list.
Thank you, Ms Campbell. Any questions of Ms Campbell, councillors? Thank you very much, Ms Campbell. Mr Wright, you wish to speak, please?
Yes. Thank you, councillors. Similarly to Marnie, we border on the applicant's property. We support Marnie's view that the covenant was something that we knowingly bought into, ensuring that our way of life was not materially impacted by other people's and vice versa. However, this particular request, if approved, would actually cause considerable harm to our property, as the fundamental basis of the request is to move the property to move the area in which they can build on top of a hill which borders our property, which would mean that the hill is no longer providing a visible or noise barrier between the developments. And therefore it would really affect the livability of our property. So yeah, precedent is a concern, but this particular request would really change our property for the worst. And we hope that the council will support the planning department's recommendation to refuse it on this occasion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Wright. Are there any questions of Mr Wright? Okay.
I have a question of officers.
Okay. Thank you, Mr Wright and Ms Campbell. Thank you very much for your presentation. Councillor Thatcher, you have a question of officers, please?
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Mine's a very simple question. I think when this subdivision was done and there was covenants put on there, they were put there for a specific reason in terms of, because it was obviously a farm block that was converted into residential or rural residential. But I understand that the person who did the development had a clear view in mind of how these blocks would be laid out. My question was, is that the reasoning why the covenant was laid on this in the first place?
Mr Verzudenhout.
Thank you through you, Mr Mayor. Obviously, when the subdivision takes place, this is an area which has got environmental sensitivity. It's got water courses. So there's a lot of consideration, and the application did consider where dwellings could be located, where the minimum impact would be, and where you can reduce the adverse impacts on adjoining development. So all of that would have been considered as part of the original subdivision, and those were carefully formed part of the assessment as a whole.
On that basis, I'd like to move it, Mr Mayor, if that's possible.
So thank you, Councillor Thatcher. It's moved, Councillor Thatcher, seconded Councillor Dudzik. Is there any opposition? I'll put that. All those in favour? It's carried. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. Next item of business is item 7.4, which relates to a proposed 3-dwelling development at 46 McCulloch Street, Bacchus Marsh. And we have a speaker, Mrs. Rachel Bueller. Mrs. Bueller, if you wish to present, please. I think you're on mute at the moment.
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can, thank you. So if you wish to give your presentation, please.
Great, sure. Thank you. So first of all, thank you for the opportunity to speak to the item. I'm speaking I'm at 40 McCulloch Street, and I'm talking about 46 McCulloch Street and the request to get 3 dwellings on that property. I'm speaking on behalf of myself, my husband, and the other objectors on a petition that I had signed, and I submitted that on behalf of our neighbours in the court. We have 10 properties just within the entrance to the court bowl and the court bowl. Number 46 is one of 2 vacant properties that are at the top of the court bowl. So they're the only 2 vacant properties left in McCulloch Street. A little bit of background. My husband and I and our 2 young children, we purchased in 2015. When we came into the street, we looked at the number of properties in the street. We expected 1 property per block of land. We liked that the houses in this street were sort of set back, quite open, large spaces around it. It gave us that sense of rural life, and it was really what we're seeking. So we purchased here on that, I guess, on that expectation, and that this this permit request just doesn't meet that criteria at all. So the officer recommendation, if my understanding is correct, the officer recommendation to this permit is to refuse a grant, to refuse this permit. We support that refusal. We request that it be refused. We believe that we strongly believe that it's an overdevelopment of the land. It is 3 units that would be joining. So it's a large roof space that is visible from Hallett's Way. The applicant has developed the plan to make it as minimal as possible from the McCullough Street view. However, it is still an overdevelopment, even if that is not directly visible from the McCullough Street view. We don't believe that it's a part of the natural growth, which is part of Precinct 15 plan, and it's not modest. We believe that it's over development, it's a high development. And we also have concerns about the prospect of 4 bins per dwelling, and that would then result in 12 bins for that premises. And there would also be the precedence for the vacant block next door to do a similar thing, a multi-dwelling development with excessive bins, which then leads into traffic issues in the court and the court bowl as well, particularly for the garbage truck. Looking at McCullough Street, on the northern side, which is what our side is, our blocks slope to the back towards the new Hallett's Way exit ramp off the Western Freeway. So we believe that the developer, if they were able to subdivide the blocks on the northern side more and have more blocks in, they would have done that at the time of the subdivision of the lots. They did it on the southern side. There is, if you look at property number 41 and 39, they have battle axe blocks that go to the back, whereas my property 40 and 38, they don't, and we believe that there would have been a reason for that at the time, and that is also applicable to number 46 if it's a large block, and it could have easily have had it been subdivided, but it hasn't been for a reason. Now, the other issues, the officers referenced the neighbourhood character as being reasons for the objections. We remain to have concern about the stormwater issue. It wasn't raised in the thing as being an issue, but we as residents here continue to be concerned about the stormwater. The applicant put in an amendment to the plan and has incorporated into the plan a hydro system and hydro sacks. I am wondering how that will be managed. There's no mention in the application if it's a strata title or body corporate, or these hydro cells seem to be in the common driveway and the shared areas. So we are concerned as to who would be responsible for ensuring their maintenance and management. As obviously if they're not maintained and managed, that would then cause further water issues. We have experienced significant water issues. We've had flooding in the waterway next to our property. It damaged the integrity of our fence. We've had neighbours on the northern side, including ourselves, with garage and shed flooded, back fence flooded. We've had since the Hallett's Way exit ramp has been built, we've had excessive amount of water coming down that hill directed towards our east northern corner. And we also had concrete come off the concrete drain coming out of that hill that is now that exit ramp off the freeway to Hallett's Way. So looking at the water plan that the applicants put in, we can see that the modelling and so on suggests that, and the flood map of Melbourne suggests there's no issue. However, as residents living with it when it rains, we are clearly aware of an issue because we see it when it rains. So my query is whether the Melbourne flood map is current, that incorporates the Hallett's Way exit ramp, and the data that they used to justify the hydrocells that referenced using rainfall modelling from 40, 50 years ago from Melbourne Airport, where there's rainfall data from 5 years and within the golf course area and Merrimute. So we're just not certain that that information is relevant or current or accurate. And we do remain concerned about water. Our other main concern is the traffic. Obviously, multiple dwellings in a court bowl that's on a steep hill is going to be an issue for bins, for garbage trucks, and anybody utilising the street, and so on. So they're our main objections. And we support, as I said, the council refusing to grant this permit.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Bueller. Thank you for your presentation. Councillors, any question on Mrs. Bueller? Okay, thank you, Ms. Bueller. Councillors, I'm in your hands. There is a recommendation there in the business.
I move it.
Move Councillor Dudzik, second to Councillor Tatchell. Any opposition? I'll put that. All those in favour? It's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. Next item of business is item 7.5, which relates to the use and development of a dog breeding facility and vegetation removal at 104 Mount Doran, Edgerton Road, Mount Doran. And again, there's a recommendation on page 63. Yeah, question? Oh, thank you, Councillor Tatchell.
Second.
Second to Councillor Dudzik. Is there any opposition? Yes, opposition. Okay. Councillor Dudzik, you move the motion.
No, Councillor Thatcher.
Councillor,
One of the dogs.
Councillor Tatchell, you move the motion. You wish to speak, please?
Yeah, I do. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'll keep it very short and sweet. I think we'll accept the problem here, and it's that's people's livability, and we know that in our experience on council has been that it's been extraordinarily difficult time for people who want to breed dogs. It's even more difficult for those that have built in around them. The reality is that the dog breeding business has probably gone through the roof in terms of the new legislation. But the reality is people still need to live next door to these places. And I accept that the objectors are none too happy about that. And I'd have to say if I was one of those neighbours, I'd be no different. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Edwards. You wish to?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Just like to say that the dog laws have changed significantly, and there are significant requirements on all breeders to have very acoustically sensitive sheds and equipment so that the dogs don't cause a problem. We are talking about an area that was raised in a previous item tonight about farming and how difficult it is to make a living on some of that land. And if we don't allow these sorts of things in those types of areas where 3,000 square metres, 10 dogs, and if I'm correct, you're allowed to have 5 dogs without a permit on a farming anyway. So we're talking about an additional 5 dogs, which would be subject to super controls. Where do we allow this to occur? If not here, where? That's my concerns.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Edwards. Are there any other councillors wish to speak for or against the recommendation? Councillor Dudzik.
I'm for the recommendation to refuse because the background on this property does not give me any confidence that the property owners would operate a breeding facility which would not impact on their neighbours. So I believe that the council officers are making the right decision in refusing it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Tatchell, you wish to close the debate, please?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'd have to agree with Councillor Dudzik. It's interesting, isn't it? There is a bit of history on this property, and I thought it was an interesting comment about farming and dogs, but I won't go there. I just I hope that's not the future of agriculture. I'll really have trouble. So we really have gone to the dogs. But look, Mr. Mayor, I think it's to be consistent. I think in the past we've taken similar views on dog breeding facilities. So my view hasn't changed, and I'd take some convincing.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Tatchell. Councillors, I'll put that. All those in favour? Oh, sorry.
You were very
Convince me.
The eloquence of Councillor Tatchell and Councillor Dudzik has won him over.
I reckon
The motion is carried.
he's gone to the dogs.
Thank you very much, councillors. The next item of business is update and trends and issues and other matters. Mr. President, or Mr. CEO, please.
No, thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any item 9 process forward and work programs? Anything to report?
No, thanks.
Thank you. Any update on VCAT decisions that may be of council?
We haven't got any recent decisions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council, is there any other business? Councillor Ward? Okay, thank you. Thank you, councillors. Date of next meeting, that'll be obviously sometime in May, I take it? 19th of May, okay. Okay, thank you. So thank you, councillors, thank you, officers, for your participation and involvement here tonight. And when Mr. Blake comes back, or will somebody advise him of the outcome of that, please? So that,
Yeah, we just have.
oh, you have, okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, councillors, and thank you for that. We'll close the meeting and have a good night and a safe